Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Studio D's YouTube channel. As you know, my name is Kate, and I am the clinic director here at Studio D. So we've been talking about a bunch of awesome stuff for the last month and diving into all the pillars of Studio D. And if you saw our introduction video last week, we are diving into curated content. So if you missed our video from last week, please go back and watch it before you join in on this one so that you get the whole picture of what we're getting into. So if you want to follow the link above, that will take you back and you can get all caught up before we start today. So a couple more housekeeping things that I got to bring up today. We are also doing a contest, a giveaway this month. So if you stay tuned to the end of the video, we'll be giving you details on a fun giveaway we are doing. So stay tuned all the way to the end. Awesome. Okay, guys. So over the last month, we had a bunch of feedback from our videos going through our pillars and everything like that, we've given you guys a lot of information. We've gone through so many details of what Studio D is, and we have all this information up on our website, but that it's a lot. It's a lot to absorb. So some people are asking us, like, in a nutshell, in one sentence, who is Studio D, or who are you guys at Studio D? And so our answer to that question is that Studio D is a multidisciplinary clinic. So we have multiple types of practitioners that work with us that work collaboratively towards your health and wellness goals. Simple, right? One sentence. And that's really all it is in a nutshell. I know we throw lots of the information at you guys because we really want to dig into why we're doing what we're doing and why it's important for you guys. But it really is simple. That's all of last month in one sentence. So let's get into what we're actually talking about today, though. So last video, like we said, we were going to dive into different profiles of our clients that we work with and how we kind of approach those clients. And so today what we're diving into is injury and rehab. And so this is more of like your traditional client base. This is what you guys would think of normally when you think of coming to a clinic and seeing an athletic therapist or a physio or a chiro or whoever. So these are your ankle sprains, your ACL tears, your back pain, your shoulder separations, all of these classic musculoskeletal injuries. And the interesting thing for me when I was thinking about how to do this video for you guys was, I've talked to you guys about how I'm the clinic director here at Studio D, but I'm also a practitioner. I'm a certified athletic therapist, and I work with our team practicing here. And I really felt like I needed to address this video from a practitioner standpoint. And when I started thinking about how to start talking about this, it was interesting because the beginning of injuries, that acute phase, the inflammation phase, that beginning stages that you have to go in when you hurt yourself, there's not a lot of curated steps that go into that. Meaning that there's not a lot of like higher processing, adapting that has to happen from a practitioner standpoint. What has to happen is you have to be, lots of communication, lots of education for your patient. But really, we know a lot about the first healing steps, and we know a lot about healing time in different tissues. Like we know how long, tendon, ligament, muscle takes to heal. And so it's less about, constantly adapting and, targeting the client really specifically. It's more about listening to the injury and what type of injury it is and what happened during that injury. It's not so much about what we've talked about in the past where you think about curated content and what we've really been hammering home. So it's kind of a little bit of a weird place to start when I'm talking about injuries and curated content by telling you guys that the beginning isn't super curated. But it is really important that your practitioner is paying attention to exactly what your diagnosis is and paying attention and talking to you and communicating with you through those beginning steps. Because what really gets important is really at the end stages. So, that stage, I'm sure you guys have all had injuries where you start to feel a lot better. And maybe you stop following your exercise program as much as you should. That stage is actually a huge area where people re-injure themselves. Because they get a bit too confident, a bit too fast. But also when we look at healing tissue times, we actually have this trend. So we get healing, which is really good. New tissue lays down, scar tissue lays down. But it doesn't have a chance to kind of reorganize and redirect itself. So we lay down lots of tissue during an injury, But what happens during that phase where you start to work out, you start to do those exercises, is the tissue starts to realign itself the proper direction instead of kind of just the chaotic lay down that your body does to make it strong. So when that is happening, we actually have a little bit of a dip in the tensile strength of that tissue. So the strength of the tissue that's been laid down. And so we have a bigger opportunity to injure ourselves there. And unfortunately, that's a lot of places where people fall off their rehab and they stop doing it, like I said, because you start to feel better. You're pretty functional. It's that phase of, yeah, I'm good enough. I can go back to my sport. I can go back to my life. And that's where a lot of re-injury happens. And we've also talked about in our last videos, kind of another thing that happens here in this last 20%, we'll call it, is really that people are like, yeah, we're good enough. I feel good. And our body actually adapts and is able to kind of compensate for that last 20%. Our body, the human body, is an amazing thing. And so your body wants to adapt. It wants to function really well. And so it's going to build compensation patterns for that last 20%, making you feel fantastic, but loading other systems, other chains in your body. It might turn off certain muscles. It might overload other muscles. It's another area that can allow you to have another injury. And so, unfortunately, this is a huge area of risk. And we've talked about this a bit in some of our other videos, is that risk mitigation is a really important thing for Studio D. And we deal with teams and with people as well. And I touched a little bit on that in our last video, is risk mitigation and how we can bring that to the stage in each of these categories. And so the biggest thing with injury and risk mitigation is trying to prevent that next injury from happening. It's not so much that preventative measure because the injury's already happened. But what we can do is prevent the next injury. And so a really good way to look at this is, looking at that big picture. And we've talked about this before. So if I have, two female patients, they've both rolled their ankles, there's probably two different reasons why they've rolled their ankles. And so if all we do is rehab the ankle and we make sure the joint is moving, and, we technically do our due diligence for that joint. It heals. We make sure that the person rests for the appropriate amount of time, does the exercises, etc., strengthens the ankle, and then let them both go. They're both probably going to re-injure themselves, but probably for different reasons. Let's say that patient X has a glute med that's not firing properly. So if the outside of your hip isn't firing properly, that will allow your knee to fall in a little bit, and that will allow your ankle to have a higher probability of rolling and spraining. Let's say that patient B, maybe they have a collapsed arch, or maybe their arch isn't rebounding properly, or maybe they have something else going on in their foot. And maybe that's why they're constantly rolling their ankles. But if we didn't step back and take a look at the big picture of the human body and why things are happening and how they're interacting, we would never be able to figure out why. The big question is, why is this happening? And prevent it from happening again. And that's where that curated content comes in. Because if you're just going in and you're getting a cookie cutter protocol all the way through, it's not adaptive. It's not gonna fulfill the needs of you. And especially if the practitioner you're seeing is only dealing with the one joint you injured. So let's say that you tore your ACL and, they deal with the swelling in the knee and they get you, moving, and they rest you properly and they get your range of motion back, but they never look at your hips. They never look at your muscles through the outsides of your glutes, and they never look at your core and your firing patterns. If they never look at really the big picture of what's influencing your knee, you're not going to recover properly. You're not going to have proper rehab, and you're not going to return to your sport, your activity, your daily life, whatever you need your body to do. You're not going to get there adequately. You're going to get there half-assed, and you're going to probably re-injure yourself, but you also might re-injure something else. We talked about if a muscle turns off, it usually loads something else. So those compensations that we touched on, it might not have you directly re-injuring the same area, but it will put you at a higher risk of re-injuring something else. And those are those pathways that as practitioners, we need to challenge ourselves to follow the path, to look at the big picture, to see what the body is telling us, and then to adapt and adjust our rehab to best cater that to you. And this is about the point in time in the video where I totally go off track because I want to start talking about chronic injuries and chronic pain. And that's kind of my jam. So I'm going to not get into that because that's what we're going into next week. But it's really, really important to me that, you guys understand that, well, the beginning stages of rehab might all look the same. And I know you've probably been to lots of different practitioners and probably done lots of the same things. The most important part of your rehab starts when you start to feel a lot better. And that's the part that should be catered to you, that should be super specific to you, and that you should be investing time and effort with your practitioner to make sure that you come out of your rehab the best possible, strongest possible person that you can be. That's my big takeaway. That's what the most important part of curated content and those traditional musculoskeletal injuries. So if you love what we're talking about right now, if you're enjoying this discussion, if you're enjoying this comment, please, please, please subscribe. Like, I always forget, and then I get yelled at after the video. So please subscribe, like, share, comment below. Again, guys, we love the discussion. We want the engagement. We want to talk to you guys, and we want to hear what you have to say. So that would be great. And then on Thursday, like I said, we are going to be diving into chronic pain, which is one of my favorite things to talk about. So please be there. I want to talk to you guys. Join me because I'm going to go on all these long-winded explanations about chronic pain. That's at 4:45 on Thursday. So please join me there. At the beginning of the video, we have a giveaway this month. So in August, at the end of August, we will be doing a giveaway, and one lucky winner will receive either their choice of a curated and empowered sweater like I'm wearing right now. They are super cozy, or a hat, a toque, because we are going to winter. It's almost September, which means Calgary's about due for their first snowfall. And then we will also be throwing in a complimentary benefit assessment. And I touched on this a little bit in our last video, but that is where we go through your benefit package with you, and we make sure that you can optimize it, that you understand how to use it, and that you're using all the tools available to you to achieve your health and wellness goals. To earn the entry into the draw, you also have to subscribe to our channel, like the video, comment on how somebody else in your life might benefit from maybe this package or these services, etc. So keep watching the videos. We'll have lots of information on different giveaways coming down the road. And like I said, we'll be diving into chronic pain on Thursday. So I will see you guys then. Bye.